This is LS, and you're on Thorin's YouTube channel, so cut the Western shit.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Elitists United. Our guests for this episode are some G2 players because, let's face it, half the league's fucking boring, or rookies, or people who are just like speaking in really broken English, you know, whereas these two guys here, fluent in English, absolutely top class. They know how to banter a little bit. So in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got MikyX, who I used to think must be one of the best support players in the whole world because he boosted that Perks guy to be able to go to DC. But I've actually realised this year that actually that Perks guy was just really good at playing ADC because, you know, enough said, right? Don't even need to invoke any of the names on that one. So you're not bad, mate. You're pretty decent. But, you know, all I'm going to say is I've seen Perks without you and with you, and I've seen you with Hans Sammer and with Caps. So I'm not laying any judgments completely down the line, but, you know, the evidence is mounting. So we'll see how it goes. And then the other guest is from the same team. Obviously, we had MikyX, a support player, but we have G2 jungler Jankos, who actually, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I referenced one of my all-time favourite anecdotes, which is that one where probably the stupidest reason to ever alienate a teammate would be when Forgiven said that Jankos was alcoholic because he went out drinking one time during the split, which is probably one of the dumbest anecdotes of all time. Because just shows he was a difficult person to get along with, right, Jankos?
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's not in LEC anymore. He was there for a second, now he's not. So what can I really say, right? I mean,
some people do wonder, like, it did seem like the G2 turbo inted that game, you know, and it's just a happy coincidence that does end the career of Forgiven forever, right? Because nothing to see, nothing to see.
Well, I mean, you could, like, Schalke just became the best team overnight. You just can't do anything about
Okay, right. Can't argue with that. So, right, MikyX, we have to start on this topic because it's a pretty big topic this year. Like the fact that you were in the best team last year. Yeah, I don't give a fuck, Doinby. Get out me, homie. You did one tournament. So you were the best team last year, and then you did make a big role swap this year, which is Perks obviously went back to mid lane and Caps went ADC. How would you evaluate Caps' adaptation this year to ADC?
I mean, honestly, I think it's going better than expected, maybe, because I think it was kind of similar last year in spring, where me and Luca weren't that great in the start, but I think we got a lot better with time. But I think people just kind of forgot about the early split because we kind of got good like towards playoffs and stuff. So I think it's probably going to be like similar this time around. And I think right now we're doing pretty well. I think we had 2 pretty bad weeks. But I think, for example, last week, well, we played worse teams, but I think we played better, but I think the big test will probably be next week where we play OG and Fnatic and they have really good bot lanes. So yeah, depending on how we do there, then it'll be a bit easier to judge how good we are.
I don't know about that. Come on, Veteran. Like, are you just going to let him off that easily? That sounds like some bullshit right there. Like,
I mean, so he's not wrong about last year with Perks. A lot of people have forgotten we didn't really start calling Perks like an SJD carry until MSI. It was at MSI where he started showing aspects of...
He didn't have as many games as Caps has had already, though. Come on.
That's true, but the first...
He was never bad.
The first half of last year's spring, it did come down to that every week someone different from G2 had the carry performance where other people were clearly underperforming, and everyone else on G2, someone else would like step up and have that carry performance. And it took a while because I remember the first carry performance from the bot lane of G2 where they really had to hold it. I can't remember who they were against, but I remember it was like you eyed on Pyke or Fresh, and it was Lucian that Perks was on.
Lucian Pyke. I was against Splice.
Yeah, there you go. It was the Lucian Pyke game. And that was the first game where they had their carry performance. That was like partway through the split already. Other people had already put everyone on their back. The 3 people from the last G2, Jankos, Caps, and Wonder had already had exceptional carry performances by that point. They didn't seem like a 5-man team of people who were comfortable as 5 until far later on. Like, you have to bear in mind, after this point, Origin would then actually destroy them. In the second time that they faced them. That was when they just permanently invaded Jankos repeatedly over and over again. They absolutely destroyed them there. G2 looked very vulnerable until we got to playoffs, and then they looked vulnerable for like 1.5 games, and then they never looked vulnerable again for the rest of the year. But because they never looked vulnerable again for the rest of the year until the very, 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 very last part of it, we kind of forgot that they did have a lot of struggles at the start. That being said, Caps looks far more uncomfortable in the role than Perks ever did. Perks wasn't stepping up and carrying, and it did look at points like you had to put him on Zoe and champions like this to make him feel comfortable in the bot lane, maybe, but Caps doesn't seem to be comfortable even playing against certain champions. Like, you guys are benefiting a lot from the fact that everyone is now banning Rakan, for example. There was one weekend where it looked like he just didn't understand the range of the Rakan W whatsoever, but now everyone but now everyone is allowed to ban it, so it's all fine, right? Like, he does seem uniquely uncomfortable in a way that Perks didn't in his first games. Perks looked like he wasn't able to carry yet. Caps looks like a mid laner off-rolled into AD carry rather than like an uncomfortable AD carry player.
I think that Caps is a bit of a different player, and I think that he needs a lot of experience in like matchups, because since he played mid lane for so many years, he was like really insane at like every matchup he had mid lane, and he knew like how every matchup should go, and he would like pretty much win every matchup, right? But now since he's playing the bot lane and he has this cocky play style of always playing in your face and trying to fight you, then he can get surprised, and it doesn't only happen on stage where he would like die for no reason because he's overstepping on or he has to burn a flash because of that, but it also happens in scrim, so it's something we are aware of, and it's something that he himself has to fix. But at the same time, I feel like this mistake he's doing, they're like in a way easy to fix, because all you have to do is just not be too cocky or wait for your support or just not play in enemy's face. But since it is his play style, then he had a Philios game where he was put really behind, and since he was put behind, he was still trying to make a lot of plays. He was trying to make himself useful, and then he would end up with him dying more. But I still think he's really talented. He's a really good player, and I still think he will perform very well. In playoffs, I guess, because that's all we care about. I think so far he has been playing very well as well. We have to keep in mind that I could be wrong, but I think when Perix played bot lane, he played some Zoe, but he also played like I think the meta was like mainly like Kai'Sa, Xayah, Ezreal. So I feel like with these champs it's like harder to die than it is with champs like Aphelios, Senna, maybe like champs like Misfortune, Varus and stuff. So I don't want to like undermine Perix, because I think he was really, really great at AD carry and he adapted quickly and he was super insane. But I just want to say that we still have like full trust in Caps, and I think he will perform as good as well.
I mean, I also have another thing to add. I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities in like the cockiness, because they're like mid laners role swapping, and also I think they're very good. I think also remember last spring when the Kai'Sa was meta, Perks was like on stage, was always ulting into like 3 people and just dying. But after like in some time he like fixed it, and wasn't as cocky, I guess. So I think it just has to work on the overconfidence level, like just like test enough limits in regular season, and then be like take all that information or the limits tested and take it into the playoff games and perform well there.
Yeah, I think it's different when you play Akali through your whole life. And it's like 1v3 everyone, and then you play Misfortune and you get CC'd once and you die, right? So everyone has to like adapt to that, I guess.
We've actually like touched on that champ pool effort before. Like obviously he played like Caps would normally play super cocky and those kinds of assassins, and now he's playing like low mobility carries where it's really easy to punish you if you do play cocky. But no one's actually done that to point out kind of what you just did. You kind of pointed out Perks had an easier time with the pool that he had when he came in the first place. No one's actually really touched on that aspect. So I am glad you brought that up. I guess Perks, like, there was a meme at a point that Perks was kind of like a Xayah player and then a bot lane player after that, right? Like, there was a bit of a meme of that for a bit. And I guess the champ pool was a lot more favorable for that kind of like cocky limit testing playstyle for a while when Perks came.
And I think like
Caps
Xayah's kind of an unorthodox champion for bot lane anyway, in terms of like the like kit of the champion compared to most ADCs. Like that's why I thought it was interesting when Inax said that, looking at the pro views of Perks as an ADC, actually found some interesting things he did that other players didn't do.
Yeah,
I think that champion has a lot more overlap with mid lane than it does some of the other games. Like Misfortune's a classic AD carry. You have to know how to position perfectly. You're dead, aren't you? So makes sense. The only thing is, though, you can put all the asterisks you want and be like, yeah, but, everyone's forgetting last year Perks wasn't that great. Listen, you just heard MikyX there try to be like, well, I mean, last week was sort of all right. So you played SK and Vitality. Like, but you may as well have said you had a great... You're like one of those guys back in the day practicing CS against bots. Like, I had a great game. 310 minutes. Like, yeah, no shit. It's bots. What are you talking about?
You can't underestimate our opponents.
That Vitality bot lane, they're having like a steel cage deathmatch with each other right now. Is getting bent. No, I was benched first. No, you were benched first. You're worse than me. No, I'm worse. Yeah, that's mental.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think we didn't have like that many games, but if I recall back to when we did play Fnatic Origin, I think we played pretty well in the bot lane. Like I think against Origin,
Yeah.
we were kind of smurfing on them, and then
I
against
mean,
Fnatic,
They only have half a lane, like, but all right. Well, am I not supposed to say it now? Just because he's from Australia, am I supposed to be nice to him? I'm like, what the fuck?
I mean, yeah, I think he was playing all right most of the games. Our game, he was like kind of running it down, but yeah. And then Fnatic game, what happened that game?
He's the only Rakan that I would want to play against.
Yeah.
Said Caps 2020. There you go.
I think the Fnatic game, it was like Hylissang who was also
Oh yeah, they
a
ran it
lot,
down.
but
Okay.
Oh,
I feel like people are forgetting that playing against like us as a support main is like more because people normally don't like punish mistakes like like overstepping, but
Sure.
when we see Hylissang going like a bit too deep or Destiny like not being able to play Rakan or whatever, like we can actually like punish those compared to like a lot of the teams where they would get away with it, and then they say Hylissang is a coin-free player, which is like not really true. I feel like he plays the same way all games. He's very consistent, but against some teams, it's just way worse, and it's also up to like his team to like follow these plays or him just being like taking too risky plays against bad teams that don't work out against the good teams. Having said that, we also played against Fnatic. We will play against Fnatic in Origin this week, and I think our bot lane will do fine. I mean, Miky, I believe in you. I just feel like
Thanks,
the game is not really revolved around bot lane right now, or like it is because bot lane is the most OP role, but you still have to like play well through mid and stuff. And I think me and Luca have that covered. I think Wunder is like still like the best top you can hope for, and I feel like Caps ever since he changed his role to bot lane, I feel like he talks to me way more, and not even like in game wise, but also in game wise. Like I feel like he actually wants to play with jungle more, because when he was playing mid lane, he would be very selfish, but also like selfless. Like he would not mind us pathing away from him, and that is why also like some of the FPX games looked very tough, because instead of us challenging them 3v3 mid lane for that middle priority, would just pick champions that could roam and like maybe like match the roaming, but we couldn't really match like the skirmishes, and then they would just get out of control. And I feel like right now Caps and is trying to like talk to me a lot about like bot waves, about how he wants me to play on bot lane with him being the bot laner, about like how he overall approaches the game. So
now he's a real ADC. He's already complaining, trying to manage the jungler all the time, tell him what waves to come down on. He's an ADC. Finally, there we go.
I'm really happy because he's actually like growing as a player a lot. I feel like this lane spot made him like stronger as like a player, and he can like understand like things from bot lane and also mid lane point of view. And he's just talking more, and that makes me very happy, because I think Caps was like one of the players that always like gave you feedback, but I feel like it will for sure give like way less feedback than he's giving right now. And I feel like since all of us are like really trying to improve, then I just don't see a chance we can like that we don't win Spring, or that we will not be the best team in Europe. Obviously like for Worlds and for like how we'll do like at the international stage, we have to wait for that. But like I really have like so much confidence in him being AD carry and in Luca being the mid laner right now.
Okay. Right, Veteran, on, like, I don't know if they have this in Slovenia or whatever, so I can't relate to these guys. I'm the fucking boomer on this one. But back in the day in England, famously, if you had an ice lolly, which is like an iced dessert for people who don't know, when you would eat it, on the stick of the lolly, once you finish eating it, you see a joke written there, right?
Yeah.
And it's always in the format of like question and then answer, but it's for little kids, so it'll always be like a dad joke, basically. Sure. I've got one of those, basically, regarding Fnatic Hylissang. So here we go, Veteran. In the same format, right? Why is Hylissang from Fnatic a coin flip player?
Oh, actually...
Do you want to know the answer? You can have a try if you want.
No,
the answer is
I actually
not enough heads up players.
Oh god.
So I did their coin.
That's absolutely horrible.
That was pretty good, I thought.
Actually horrible.
If anyone out there wants to hit me up with the memorabilia of LEC joke-related ice lollies, which, by the way, the joke was only relevant for about 2 weeks, so you've got to get this product out of the shelves really quickly, otherwise it's over. And then also just let the Vitality bot lane write their own jokes.
I actually agree with what Jankos said about Hylissang, because I've been trying to figure out why he's inconsistent. But I think Jankos is actually right when he says that he plays consistently every game. But what I would add to that is he plays the same every game, but that's irrespective of what the rest of his team are trying to do. So like the Nautilus game where he kind of ran it down against G2, he's still just looking to perma engage when the rest of the composition is just based around zoning and kiting back. So you would constantly isolate himself, and he would not just sit on top of his carries, which is pretty much all he had to do that game. But the compositions they were playing most of last summer facilitated his like really heavily.
Hasn't his champ pool also fallen off a cliff basically as well? Like he can't just play Nautilus the way he plays it.
Yeah, but he does play Braum and Tarm very differently to how he plays Nautilus. Like historic, like there was a season where it was this kind of meta where you don't want to just play hard pick-based champions perma, where they would just get Braum and they would win the game, or they wouldn't get Braum eventually and then they would start losing. And this weekend, the bot lane of Fnatic looked a lot better than they did the weekend before that, where they were just running it down because they just started putting him on Tarm every game and his job was very simple and he stopped trying to like suicide while everybody else was, you know, doing something else entirely. But I actually kind of agree with Jankos. I think he does just do the same thing every game, but I think he just doesn't add any context with it. So if the rest of the team composition isn't based around facilitating his pick-based playstyle, he'll just look like an inter. But I do think he is just doing the same shit every game. I actually like the way Jankos.
What do you think, MikyX? You kind of come in on this one? Are you just going to sit out while they all just like trash on Hylissang, just explain why he's bad? You're just chilling, enjoying life.
I mean, I do agree that he does play a similar way every game, and the way it's very aggressive. Like I think he as a player wants to always make something happen. He never wants to like just chill for like a minute and just do nothing. Mm-hmm. He always wants to like make something happen, and I think he's also very vocal in the team. And I think Weepo's also a player like that. But yeah, I think the problem with Hilly is, kind of champion pool. Like his Nautilus games were not that great. I mean, I also had like some off Nautilus games, but I think it's also like the context of when you pick Nautilus. Because for example, in our game, I think Nautilus pick was like not that great when they have a Philios and Viger. I think he just shouldn't pick a champion like Nautilus that wants to actually go in. He'll just play something that he can just peel. And yeah, I think with Tahm Kench, it makes him be a bit more, and play with the backline and just like peel a bit, don't go so aggressive. But I do remember his Tahm Kench being like one of the more aggressive ones. He just every chance he gets to ult on someone, he will like ult and go in or like just flash on the carry and just like 1-in-1 MS Tahm Kench or something like that. But yeah, I think overall he's a really good player, and like whenever we play against him, it's always pretty hard because he puts a lot of pressure on you, like in lane, and you always have to be aware of what he wants to do next because, like I said, he's never AFK like some other sports.
What are you on about? It's the scale and meta. You're supposed to be AFK.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
It's probably pretty bad for him right now because he's going to have to try to engage into like a Zac and Ornn every single game, and then Yumi's just going to rush in there as well, and he's just not going to know what's going on. Like, it's a pretty easy meta to punish him, which is odd because the rest of Fnatic like severely benefit from this patch, no? Like, they love the kind of shit they can pull out here. Bwipo gets to pull out like Singed into all these tanks, or just pick Zac, or pick a tank himself, or pick Aatrox. Like, his entire champ pool is really facilitated by this. Nemesis gets to add something to his champ pool for the first time in a year and a half by just picking Ornn, and learning it for like 2 days and being an S+ player on it. Like the whole team. Like, we've seen Selfmade play heavy farming junglers before, so I think he can just kind of play anything. But Hylissang's champ pool is probably worse off in this kind of meta. We've never thought of this guy as like a Yumi player, right? Even when they were rolling out Garen Yumi, that was kind of what kind of lost him in the World Championship stage, right? Outside of the Garen Yumi cheese pick, we've never really seen him perform on these kinds of champs. We would never think of him as like a Soraka player, right? He's not going to be anything like this. So he's the odd spot there.
If we're on the topic of the Fnatic players, let's just skip into another classic one. So obviously the Fnatic jungle role was the role that changed this split, bringing in Selfmade instead. Yep. Jankos, what do you think of this? Because it seems like even though those two players, Nemesis and Selfmade, used to be teammates years ago, they don't seem like the same players they were years ago when they played together. Like the synergy between the two of them looks way worse now. What do you think of this Fnatic team?
So I never watched them playing together back in the day. So I don't know how did it look like back in the day, but I can also imagine that they played in a team where they had to play together. I feel like right now Fnatic is in a state where Selfmade can play around every lane, and I think that overall, some league players are more vocal than the others, and if you play with a vocal player and you play with a player that just doesn't talk in game, then you will probably play as the jungler. You will probably play around the vocal player, and I don't know how his Nemesis because I never played with him, but I can say that Bwipo is pretty vocal probably about his game, and probably Hylissang is pretty vocal as well. and that's why we see Selfmade also puffing at like top and bot, and also like helping people a lot. But I think it feels like he is mid lane when he has to be. Like I never saw him being like not being mid lane when Nemesis needs a push out or when Nemesis wants to TP to lane. I think he's actually playing very well around like his mid laner needing whatever he needs. And then I think overall Fnatic as a team is really good about like how they TP or like play around bot lane. They never like hesitate to pull the trigger. I just feel like whenever there's like a counter gank could happen and Selfmade is not there, they would just like insta TP. And I think sometimes it really like bites them in the ass, but sometimes it like really works well for them. For example, in the game against Misfits, I believe that there was a level 3 fight happening mid lane. Meanwhile, Bippo pushed out top lane and he just TP'd mid, got a double kill, got red buff. The game was over, right? So I think Fnatic as a team is very strong. I think that addition of Selfmade, I think he's way more proactive and looks for way more plays than Broxa did. So I also feel like it's I guess good to a degree for the team, because I think junglers should be proactive and should like look for stuff and should like be just smart about the map and stuff. And I think like playing as Broxa was more about him just like going bot lane and like trying to help Reckless, or I just didn't feel as much pressure playing as Broxa as I do against Selfmade. But I don't think he's much better than Broxa either. I feel like Fnatic as a team is pretty similar. So yeah, I don't feel like that big of a difference. I think the meta shifted. I think Hylissang is playing different champions. I think like Nemesis people are still pretty much playing the same thing. Rex is pretty much playing the same thing. Their jungle I feel like is more around top lane or like more around top side of the map than he was around bot side of the map, and he also like tries to farm less and like do more stuff, which is I think good for the game. But yeah, I mean I personally like don't feel like more that much more pressure, playing against like Fnatic from this year, last year so far at least. Maybe I will get proven wrong.
Possible famous last words for next week, since you do play them.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't really think so. I think that they are pretty much the same. But
what do you think, Veteran? This Fnatic's better, surely.
I mean, this Fnatic's better. I could understand why he wouldn't feel more pressure than last year playing against them, because last year you saw a lot of like, for example, the opening game of Summer where they beat G2, they literally did like a full early game composition, Renekton and everything, just spam ganking topside until they won the game. It was actually a very, very fast game. You're not seeing any kind of strategy like that coming out of Fnatic now. They're very much playing for like mid-game spikes, and whereas Selfmade's doing a very good job around the map in a way that Broxa wasn't last year, it doesn't seem like any lane kind of gets ignored this year, like whereas last year there was like a full split where I'm pretty sure Broxa didn't know Bwipo was even on his team, and that's probably where Bwipo picked up the tendencies of being able to back up every lane pretty fast. Like that teleport he did in the Misfits game was very typical of what he would do last year's Spring as well. But I think that despite the fact I think that early game is a lot better this year, it's not like a hard pressure on mid jungle is just going to roam and accelerate top and accelerate bottom, blah, 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 like kind of thing. They're just reacting to plays early game. They're fixing waves very well, but they don't play to like hard accelerate ever like we have seen Fnatic do in the past. That's just not in their repertoire. Part of that is because of the meta, right? Part of that's because of the meta, but I could understand why maybe you wouldn't feel more pressured. I do think objectively their early game is a lot better now because of Selfmade. And in what you were saying about how you don't know how mid jungle worked for them beforehand, for Nemesis and Selfmade before. Nemesis didn't really talk much, but Selfmade always talked like a ton when they were previously on the team together. And it would basically be Nemesis would pick something like a Zero Corki every game, perma pressure mid lane, and Selfmade would just permanently invade enemy jungler over and over again. And he made a really big name for himself doing this, and that was basically the strategy that they ran. The fact that side lanes were very vocal on Fnatic in the past is kind of why Broxa would always just go one side and ignore the other, because it would either be Hylissang screaming he needs to go bot, or it would be Bwipo screaming he needs to go top, depending on the composition that they picked then. Broxa was never very good at looking at the map and figuring out everything he needs to do on the map. Selfmade will always do that himself, so you don't even necessarily need sides to be really talkative. He's very good at identifying this shit himself, and that's why he's always an upgrade. I actually have him as S tier now, so he's the first person to join that jungle thing with you since Cold. So I have a very high opinion of him, like a very high opinion of him now.
Back when Cold was good. That's in
before
a long while.
Before Rift Rivals, before pre-Rift Rivals.
A long time ago, and he got
pre-Rift Rivals.
exactly. Right. What should we switch teams then? What about Misfits? Like MikyX, what do you think of Misfits? Listen, everyone was riding that hype train like 2 weeks ago. I feel like it might be starting to derail now. I feel like some of those players are coming back down to earth. You can't just Razork's not just going to smurf every other week. Like, I don't know. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I think definitely derailed a little bit. I think by the end of the split, they're probably gonna just be like 5th or 6th, and probably gonna drop out of playoffs fast. But yeah, I think their players.
There we go. Get fucked.
Their players are like pretty good, but they're not like insane. I think their mid jungle is decent, I guess. I think their bot lane is okay. I think they just play well as like mid jungle support.
Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, that's basically how they're in games. I think their draft this week were pretty bad as well. So I'm not sure how they won those games. I guess they played SK, or was that last week? That was this week.
No, they played them this week, I think.
Yeah, it was this.
So they probably should have another loss, but they played SK. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Right, Jankos, you know this cocky ass Dutch guy. He's called Feberven. He's like a mid laner, you know. Used to think he was good or something. Like, what do you think of this Misfits team?
No, I mean, I actually think they are pretty good, but it's just that we have a lot of good teams in Europe right now, and I would put us, Origin, Fnatic above Misfits. I'm not sure about Rogue just yet. But yeah, I do agree. I think their jungle is actually really good. I think he probably will get Rookie of the Split. I think he has been like playing very well, and I think he's similar to Selfmade, like Veteran explained. I think he's like pretty smart about like where to be on the map, but at the same time, I feel like they only play around mid lane, and if Fabi and Razork, right, are behind, then it's like very hard for them to play the game. And I just feel like all the players are like not exceptionally skilled. So even though they play a very solid game, and it's a pleasant surprise for me, because before the split started, I would say they would be like really trash. I think they are like pretty good, but just pretty good is not enough to like contest high places in playoffs. So I think they are a solid team, you know. I think they could maybe like fight for like top 2 in NA, for example, where Cloud9 is
Fucking hell. It's the way he's doing all backhanded compliments non-stop.
but I just don't think it will be enough to like secure like a top 4 to 5 position in Europe, because we just have a lot of like good teams.
Like, first of all, Misfits did beat G2, so I don't know why you're pretending like you don't even know the jungle. Let me check my notes there. This Razor K, whoever he is, you know, I've never heard of him personally.
Okay, to my defense, I actually didn't know his name.
Okay.
And then he just destroyed me when he was playing Echo. So, but you know, that game my AD carry also went 0-7, so that's
exactly.
Oh god,
0-9 was the end score. 0-9.
Exactly. Yeah, the Aphelios, the dreaded Aphelios game.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the way they played this game, like, okay, so I will just walk you through champ select. Okay. So they told us, okay, so it's the 5th ban, and we already banned 1 AP jungler, and then we like, I think our coach or someone said, this guy is an Echo player, he plays a lot of Echo in solo queue, and then we said, like maybe I said, hey guys, if he picks Echo, it's free win. There's no
famous words
against Echo jungle on stage, right? And I just want to tell you that decision was also influenced by the fact that my top lane is very vocal about how he hates Echo and how he wants to report every jungler that plays Echo in solo queue. So, you know, I never like really played Echo myself a lot because my team always hated it and they said it's really trash. And in this one game, he plays Echo, he goes bot lane, we don't really know how his W works, and we just quite a lot, and we just get stunned every fight, and then they also have like a Rakan combo, so how they do, like, I think that the Echo in that game, like, he had a lot of like champs that could set them up, where like Rakan goes in and, you know, the Echo W comes after, or set, you like basically W like far away, and then Seth just ults someone into the W if it's a lane gank. So I think like how they play, like obviously this guy's like really insane Echo player, and how they played around Echo, and it's just that game. But yeah, we are not losing another game to Misfits. I'm just saying like this was just like one of gank game.
Okay, there's actually a clip from Perks' stream that went around where the day before you guys played Misfits, Perks said on stream, actually, this guy smurfs on Echo. I swear if we lose to like Echo tomorrow, I'm gonna quit. Like there was a clip that went around Reddit like immediately after of him doing that the previous day. So the one guy you didn't name.
We could have banned Echo that game without disrespecting him, but I just can't believe I lost against Echo on stage. It's just, I don't know. But I also played pretty bad that game. I think I was I was put in a good spot, and I think I overstressed myself a bit, and I think I misplayed like a lot of stuff, even though I was ahead. And I think I played very well, but I started like choking or just playing bad or just sucking like something. So I think I could play much better that game. So I would not only put it on them, but also on myself to like perform better in a scenario if a scenario like this arises again.
I do think though it was kind of rare for junglers to match you on the map before. Like last year, it was kind of rare for junglers to be good enough to match you on the map early on. But Razor, the first 2 weeks he was AFK, but ever since then he has actually been doing everything we normally expect top tier junglers to understand at a fundamental level. Like he is going around fixing waves. He does understand when enemy waves are out of sync, and he goes and does a gank when he can. He understands where the enemy team has vision and will path around it every time. Like he actually has a very good understanding of how to play jungle now, which I can only imagine is in part, and it's very rare for me to praise a coach at all, but you have to imagine that it's because Amazing is there and is a former pro jungler, and the conversation you can have with a guy like Amazing are different from conversations you could have with like any other kind of coach, right? Having a former pro jungler there, it can only be valuable, even if Amazing isn't like micromanaging every aspect of him or something like this. He can definitely have conversations with him where he can improve. Like he's definitely the most improved. I can see him getting Rookie of the Split, but I think Kazi has
will win
consistently
Rookie
done
of
it.
the
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, okay. Kazi is pretty good as well, but
and also just the role he
good.
plays, like you're going to look like you carried the game if you're the ADC and Mad Lions wins a bunch of games. Like you're just going to look like the superstar, I think.
Yeah, but also, he did smurf over Jankos, but people probably forget about that.
Yeah, that'll be too long in the past.
Well, that's like an overstatement, I would like to say. But yes, he did.
Yeah,
win.
I don't think. Yeah,
No,
I
he
think
mainly
everyone
just
forget it.
killed Caps, exactly. So, like, let's be fair on that one, Veteran. And also, by the way, I just want to note, since it was in the testimony of Jankos, as usual, the coach gets completely screwed here by actually giving the good info.
Yes.
He's done his research, and then his stupid ass players just ignore him anyway, and then he gets all the blame for the draft. So we all know how that works. It's still the same old game.
I mean, it's like, I don't know. Like, I can give you another example. I think it was our game we played against Rogue, and in that game, like I had such a good draft in mind. Like my draft was so insanely crazy good. And then I said, Grabs, all you have to do right now is to ban Lee Sin, and they cannot play the game. And then Grab said, well, but Inspire played only 3 or 4 games of Lee Sin competitively, so he'll not play Lee Sin, so we should ban something else. And then he obviously picks Lee Sin. So yeah, I mean, he was right in the echo case, but he's not always right? So you just have to trust yourself sometimes. And I did trust myself, and we left the echo open, and we lost the game. So sucks.
And
by the way,
we won the leasing game, so you know.
By the way,
Thorin,
on the Misfits case, actually, I see you have Feb1ven going on the crackdown. You have to ask him, because he said 2 things. 1, that Nemesis not being very aggressive is going to be a really bad thing for him. And 2, that Veigar is completely useless. And then he loses to Nemesis on Veigar, with Veigar being incredibly influential in that win, by the way, last weekend. You have to bring this up. Like, you have to challenge
I'll ask him.
he got wrecked. He got wrecked by this. Yeah, great. He was up gold over Veigar the whole game, but Veigar just has to throw down cage and he's already useful. They couldn't contest him around any neutral objective whatsoever that game. And unlike the G2 game, they didn't run it down from Hylissang's angle, and they were actually able to close it out. But seriously, after all the shit he was chatting there about it, like, you have to bring it up. I do still think Feb1ven is actually better than Nemesis overall, but like the Veigar statement, like, really tilted me there. On the Inspired thing, by the way, I don't think Inspired looks good on Lee Sin. I do have to say that. He hasn't really looked good this split at all, but like
he's been the most questionable rogue player.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's definitely like being.
The only thing is that when I play against a player, I don't really give a I don't really like care about like what he is like good at, like in the I mean, obviously if a player is like a huge Lee Sin main, like Tian for example, and we leave it open 3 games and he just kind of destroys us, sure, right? But like sometimes you just need to make a good draft, and the good draft is based on the champion and not what the player can play. Because even if Inspired can play a better Olaf than he can play Lee Sin, whatever, then it won't matter in a case where we just have a draft where Olaf is just not going to be a champion, So sure, like I agree that maybe he didn't look insane on Lee Sin, but it's just more about a draft example whereas again Razor, I know from solo queue, or like I guess my team knows that he's really good on Echo, and he plays like dozens games of Echo, and we still left it open because we just didn't think the champ is good.
Yeah.
Enough said. What about Mad Lions then? What about this newer team? What do you think, MikyX? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mad Lions are pretty good. I think they're for sure like the team that surprised me the most. I didn't think they would be like that good. I think their bot lane is really solid, like from the start. I think the only like kinda, I mean, I guess Orome and Humanoid are like not doing that great. I mean, Humanoid has like really random deaths, I guess. Like some games he like does really well, but most of the games he just ints. But I think their bot lane and their jungler is really good, and they play well as a team, and they also draft pretty well. So I think overall they're a pretty solid team. I think they could make it far in playoffs. They're kind of like a dark horse, I guess. So we'll see.
Are you agreeing with that, Veteran?
Well, I actually just want to hear what Jankos says about Shadow, because I think Shadow's been doing really, really fucking well. I think he definitely does not look uncomfortable on Lee Sin, and I think that they picked Lee over the weekend because they don't want to show the rest of the pool that is actually very effective on 10.4 for him. Like he's going to be able to pull out like Kindred, Talia, all of this shit, and it's actually really good into the tank meta that we're going to see coming up. So they haven't even shown all their cards. I actually really want to know what Jankos thinks about Shadow.
So I didn't watch all the games. I don't remember our game against them. Did we lose or win?
Yeah, Kalista Tarek. That was the one.
It was one of the first games.
Oh my god, we lost.
Lee Sin LeBlanc.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they are a good team. We lost, I guess they are a good team. I mean, I think that overall the players are pretty solid. I don't think. I mean, so I would say that Humanoid would be like the strongest player in the team, but right now he looks actually like the weakest player in the team because I didn't know any of the players before. Like, who is the support?
He's
Kaiser. He was Gistic beforehand.
Kaiser, and who is the top laner?
Orome.
Okay, so I actually think Orome is the worst player in the team, but I also think that it's because he gets left alone a lot on side lanes, on weak side, and I think that he is, he's a new player, so he doesn't really know how, like, he's not as good playing on the weak side as, someone like Beep or Wunder would be. So I think that this guy can actually play well, but he has been looking pretty weak because of how they play the game, and they do play on Humanoid quite a lot, and I think they're really good at playing on side lanes. And they do cover Humanoid, and I think that the game understanding from that team is better than Spice's back in the day, and I think that they are actually like way more aggressive team as well, and I think the bot lane is actually very solid as well, and I think the jungle is obviously super good, and mid lane is like Mickey mentioned, kind of coin flippy, like he does get caught, but he also has games where he can play very well. I guess the games where he's playing very well is mainly LeBlanc. Like maybe this guy just needs a dash, otherwise he will run it down. There's also a case where LeBlanc is banned in playoffs and he just loses his team the whole game. Like I can see Humanoid doing that. So I think that as a team they are strong. Again, I would put them as maybe the fourth team then, because I just don't like. I really don't know how strong is Rogue, because sometimes they have like those rookies and Vander and stuff, but I feel like they are actually not improving a lot like compared to last year, and I feel like they are pretty much still the same team, and they just have better AD carry than they had, right? I mean, Hansama is better than Wulai was. But I just don't see them like playing like very well, So I think that for sure, Mad Lions a good surprise, like a positive surprise, and I think that if I were to face them in playoffs, I would personally feel that they can actually like pull it off. Like I wouldn't be scared of losing, but I would respect them a lot. I would think that even though they are a new team and even though they have a bunch of rookies, I think they can play well. So I think they are a good team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have that because so you're either ridiculously smart or I'm really dumb, because you barely watch any of these. What's wrong with this camera? You barely watch any of their games, but somehow we've ended up with like the same opinion on a lot of the things that you just said. Like, I do think that they are a lot more aggressive than they were last year. I do think that the team overall looks like one of the strongest teams. You put Rogue and not Origin right as third. That was what you did, right? Because you don't know how strong Rogue are, so you don't want to put or did you put Origin third?
No, Origin was third. Fnatic was like.
Never mind. I think Origin are going to get outscaled in a similar way to Misfits, so nowhere near to the same extent, because I think Origin have objectively way better players. But on the side of Mad Lions, okay, so I agree with you that Aromare probably looks worse than he should, because he's just kind of left alone on weak side permanently, right? I think it's difficult for him to look really, really good on that team, and that's really similar to what happened when he was on Splice Vipers last year, where he was basically left alone, but he had an objectively horrible jungler then. Now I think they're just kind of doing it as a response to the way that the meta has gone, such that you can do this, like what happened with Whipper and Zac. They basically just left him alone, and Zac was still really, really strong. They literally did that with Aroma, and he just made really good use of Zac in Fog of War scenarios, which is something that they used to accelerate the game properly, which is not something that last year's Splice would do. What I had been being told about why last year's Splice was forced into this kind of like wait to win playstyle was that essentially Kobe wouldn't do anything unless he had 3 items, and he basically wanted the game to get to the point where he had 3 items and then he would be willing to team fight, and they played on the assumption that that was what they had to do, objectively speaking. Obviously, if you're bringing out stuff like Callista, you're no longer in that kind of mindset, right? So they're kind of more freed up to explore other playstyles. With rookies, it's always a little bit of a flip whether or not they would be brave enough to do that, or whether they would kind of just want to become meta slaves because they don't trust themselves so much. But Shadow and Gistic were, or Kaiser as he's now called, were the leaders on their previous team, and they're very vocal now. So I had assumed that they were kind of like leading everything. As it turns out, Humanoid is actually the one that is shot calling for them, to the point where he's almost micromanaging them. We had Kazi on the show who said that, and that's why Humanoid's mechanics and focus with regards to his own play has kind of taken a downturn recently. But I think the more used he gets to the leadership position, the better he will get again. And I think right now, even though he's being inconsistent, he's obviously good enough to beat the top 2 teams. They've beaten Fnatic and they've beaten G2 now. They haven't beaten an Origin, but that's only a matter of time, to be honest, at this point. We're just kind of waiting for them to do it. And then we're seeing where everywhere else falls. But previously, whereas people were thinking it was going to be between Origin and Rogue for third, I think, honestly, Mad Lions is probably the front runner for that now. If they keep going in this trajectory, like MikyX, actually, no, you weren't. Hey, you were on a team previously that had like a horrible swing split, all rookies, and then went to Worlds in summer. We were kind of expecting Mad Lions to be that, except you guys.
Spring.
Yeah, you weren't really there in spring is the problem, right? Like they underwent changes and then they did. But this team, we were kind of expecting them to do something similar to that, but they just kind of hit the ground running, really. And I think this team is probably going to be our third Worlds team now, because Rogue isn't looking so hot. And I think Origin are already showing a lot of the signs of weakness that we were kind of expecting. I think Origin have to undergo a roster change if they want to make it to World Championships in 2 positions. And I don't think Rogue need a roster change. I just think Rogue might need way more time to develop before we can say that they're going to be the challengers for like the 3rd spot in Europe. Right now, I think Mad Lions is going to outscale everyone except for G2 and Fnatic.
MikyX, what do you think of Rogue?
Yeah, I think they're like a bit weird. They're like just like fine. I think they're like a top 5 team, but I'm never like really impressed by them. They're just like solid. I think their bot lane is fine. Yeah, all the lanes are just like fine, but I don't think they're like got that much better from last split, even though they upgraded their AD carry position. And yeah, I think right now they're like, I don't know, probably the 5th best team. And we played them. Yeah, I mean, they left Soraka open, so that was a drafting error. So hopefully next time it will be a bit closer in the draft, so we can see. But even though that game they played pretty well, and yeah, recently they started playing some more Ezreal Yumi, which they didn't play before because Hans Sama wasn't quite the Ezreal player. And I'm kind of surprised they're like not really picking Draven, even though I think it's open like most of the time. And yeah, they're like still doing pretty well. Maybe they're just having it for playoffs and they're just gonna pop off. But yeah, I don't expect them to get that far in playoffs, but I guess they could. I think maybe like top 4 they could probably make it. I think Origin, Rogue, and Mad Lions are like all kind of similar, but I think Mad Lions has like the most the highest chance of like actually making it furthest, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. What holds them back then, Veteran? Because like the problem with Rogue is the only top team they've beaten is Misfits, basically, and even then top teams in like air quotes or whatever. So it's not looking good if you go in the playoffs, if all the teams that beat you are the playoff teams.
So what's holding up most teams and is also holding back Rogue is these two guys. Like you actually have to be able to match these two guys if you want to be able to match their team. And Mad Lions have a jungle support that can do that. Rogue Inspired has not looked that solid. We thought that what was going to happen was that you're going to see a lot more freedom around the map because Vander would be unlocked because he doesn't have to just babysit Woolite for the entirety of every single game that they play together, lest he falls behind. I think it was a record, no? That when he fell behind like 88 CS in the first, like, I think it was like 20 minutes of the game. I think it was like a record. But now theoretically with Vander open up more around the map, we would see more of the dynamic that they had on the Rogue Academy team when they initially came in, where it was very much Inspired plus Vander just take over the game at mid game. As is, plenty of other teams are vastly better than them at doing that. Inspired doesn't even seem comfortable in the champions he's on. He's often running off to find solo plays for himself. Either they're not focusing on jungle support like we thought they would, because that was the only real thing that they were lacking beforehand, or they just or they're just not good at it. And it's a real shame because Inspired was making a lot of people excited. I thought he was very good at reacting to poor map states, but the caveat of that was that they were generally set up by his early clears being very suboptimal, as he was kind of running around fixing his own problems. But at least he was fixing problems outside of like Boxer, for example, is always going to be the famous example I always bring up of a guy who doesn't actually jungle well. That's what's holding them back. But they also have the second problem that Finn seems quite inconsistent right now. His champ pool has expanded faster than any other top laner's champ pool has, but he's not there yet, right? We're not going to talk about him as like the next S tier top laner for a while, like we could talk about Larson, or like I would argue we still can talk about Larson. I think Larson is incredibly impactful on that team, especially given all of the other problems that they have. And if they'd put him on a carry in the Draven game, that had the one Draven game Hans Sama had this split, they probably would have won that game. He could have very easily closed it for them. But as is, the jungle support is just not strong enough. Finn is kind of champion dependent right now, and when it comes to mid-late game, the only play that they have is basically the play that Misfits 2017 Spring had, which was where they just crowd around Baron and they try to make picks in red side jungle, and if they don't make a pick there, they don't know how to close the game. They don't like prolong a 1-3-1 like Origin do, and they don't magically kill everybody like G2 do no matter where the fuck they are. Like they don't really have a plan outside of just permanently invade red side jungle around Baron. That's the only way that they know to close the game. So they have problems to fix, way more problems than Mad Lions have to fix. And Mad Lions' problems seem to be things that might just be fixed with time at this point. Humanoid gets more used to his role. Jungle support just keeps playing as they are and keeps improving there. And the Roamer just waits for a meta that suits him a bit more. And suddenly they kind of lose all their flaws right now, and they look like a team that can challenge the top three. But you really need to be able to challenge these two guests that we have here if you want to call yourself a good team now, and Rogue just can't do that.
Can they do that, Jankos? Can Inspired, third best Polish jungler, challenge you for the top spot in the jungle?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? I mean, I think that since all of them are very young, I mean, they still have like kind of young roster except for Vander. He's like, I guess 1 year older than me, so that's pretty old. I'm an expert player now. I'm pretty old as well. I think that for me, the issue with Rogue is that I feel like all of them are like lack talent in a way. I mean, they are all like talented enough as like individuals, like mechanics wise, but I just think they don't actually know how to play. And I think that I think that it takes them a lot of time to figure it out. And I think their coaching staff is probably really useless as well, and they have no clue as well. So like, I mean, because that is my conclusion from watching them last year and this year. They didn't change much. I think they are a bit better at using their TPs when they have to flank people, and I think they're a bit better at like fighting for objectives when it comes to like groups and flanks. But these things you can figure out as like a player when you just play solo queue and you are like, okay, I'm playing Aetros, I have to flank them. Wow, good job, So I feel like they have improved in some parts, but I think like they are pretty much the same team. And I think, mechanically, like I mentioned, they're pretty good. So it's not like they cannot fight you on lanes, or they cannot fight you in the jungle, or they can't win skirmishes. But I just feel like, they're just not like very good at just playing League after like 20 minutes.
Okay, right. Freddy122 blown the fuck out there. So, he's done, right? The coaching staff, absolute useless trash. Got that. Okay.
Well, I mean,
Hey, don't forget all the players that just don't.
No, yeah.
play the game
No, here's
as
the
well.
thing, Veteran. You got to give them, on the one hand, you got to give them a compliment. They're all talented players. They just don't know how to play the video game League of Legends. That's their only problem.
maybe I was a bit daft. Okay? Maybe I was being daft because in the game like in SAS, for example, like Mickey mentioned, they were playing pretty good, and I think that's why the game was so tight because they also found those like flanks. But I believe that in this game we also had we had the Soraka, which is very OP, but I think they had Aatrox and they had Senna, didn't they? Or was it what kind of AD carry they had? I don't remember. But I remember them having like a very strong comp as well. So it's not like even though Soraka is super OP, they also had a good draft. And they still managed to throw this game because they were kind of in the lead. And even though I mean Soraka, I know I don't know if it's because purely of Soraka or because they could have played a bit better. But I still feel when I play scrims against them or when I play on stage, I guess I played only once this year and a couple of times last year. And I just don't for example, when you play against Fnatic last year, you would at least feel pressure in the early game. Or you would know that they will have an idea on how to pull out a dive bot or a TP play bot. But when I play against Rogue, I just don't expect anything. They don't have their way of playing the game. It's just they are playing the game. And in some games it will work, but some games they're just it won't, right? I know they are just so grey. They are just no taste.
The thing is, Veteran, I'm sort of with him because, like I said, first of all, it's not that exciting that the only top team they've beaten is Misfits. If you want to actually be a dangerous underdog, you have to be like Mad Lions, you could potentially surprise anyone. That's what makes you dangerous. And then the other angle is, I'm sort of with him. I don't think any of the players are bad, but as a team, they're not very good.
Yeah, I mean, well, he didn't even just say that, right? It's also none of the players themselves are that good.
No, but if you have rookies, that makes more sense, doesn't it? The thing they're going to know the least about is how to play in a professional team. They've only been at the National League level, or their careers are very short.
I think even with the influx of talented support players, I do think Vander is still top 3, top 4. I think he is. At the very least, I would say that he is talented.
Yeah, because he plays support. You don't have to stay super sick. You're like a little brainiac, aren't you? I know how to move around the map. That is a skill. That's the only role. Every other role, you have to kill those little minions.
It's hard. It's hard to defend them. I criticized them more specifically than Jankos did. It's hard to defend the statement though that this team just doesn't seem to understand to play League of Legends because it's honestly a good generalization.
Yeah.
Honestly, they aren't playing the same game that the top teams are playing. It doesn't even look like they're trying to play the same game the top teams are playing. It looks like they're trying to play the game the way the game was described to them by a Reddit comment or something, right? That seems to be what they're tending towards, and it's disappointing because where I would disagree with Jankos is I genuinely believe that a lot of the individual players there do understand how to play the game. They just don't understand how to do it at a competitive level right now, I guess you could say, and they don't understand how to do it as 5. And yeah,
obviously, based on your analysis of Misfits, they should just hire Amazing as their coach. Problem solved.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
I've used the Reddit narratives and your narrative. I've merged them together and solved the problem. Yes. There we go.
Inspired, immediately fixed. Right away. It's done. Inspired will just suddenly become the second most improved player.
And if not, then we bring in Kikis. Problem solved.
Exactly.
And replace everyone in the game. Exactly.
But Rogue began with Kikis, and it will finally reach Worlds with Kikis. Somehow.
He will end Rogue as well. Exactly. It started with him, and he will be there at its death. Exactly.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have any hard feelings for any of the players because I think all of them are talented, like I mentioned. All of them are good, but it just feels tasteless. That's all I'm trying to say. So I don't believe they are a weak team because there is there are games where they could beat us, or there are games where it could be this team could be considered top 4, top 5 in Europe, and they are still a strong team, and if they would be to compete in a night, they would probably again be top 2. but it's just I mean, if they don't actually get to understand how to play League as 5 and what to do after 20 minutes, how to play with sides, how to group, and how to force fights and how to close out games, because it feels to me that they had a lot of games where they were ahead and they just couldn't close them out, And yeah, I mean, I think every team can improve, so I'm not saying that they are trash and they will never be better, but for me, they're like the least of a worry when it comes to playoffs. Like I would say, yeah, Mad Lions would probably like be a bit more of a worry, but then again, what if you ban El Blanc? Maybe they are not anymore. And then there's like Misfits, where are a pleasant surprise, but like right now they are like scaling up a bit. Like it doesn't seem like they're winning as many games, and but they're still a strong team. And there's Fnatic, which is obviously like a strong team, and Origin. You said they will get outscaled.
Yeah,
I don't know if I believe that. I mean, like Destiny is like not so hot, right? He's not the best player, but
it's also Xerxes. I don't want to just like flame Destiny. I also want to flame Xerxes. Like, I don't think Xerxes does all the map-based stuff that you praise self-made for, that you yourself are famous for understanding on like an intuitive level. I think
I mean that's also true. I mean, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure. I think the thing about Origin is that they have like a lot of like smart players that were doing really well on like different rosters, and as much as I think praise for NateDOhDoubleG was misplaced back in the day, then I think right now he's playing smart and he's pretty good, and everyone in the roster is good. So I think that they can be a good team, like at least like today, week 6, soon 7 of LEC, I would put them and Fnatic as the like Origin and Fnatic as the strongest, obviously excluding the best team G2 Esports.
I think even on the basis of this last week, I would probably put. I think Origin's game versus Rogue had like a lot of issues. I think jungle support did their job like once, which was like very briefly in mid game. They rotated to mid, then to bot, then to top, and that was it. There was like a 3-minute sequence where they were actually working as a duo, and even then they didn't even know how to like tank turrets properly. It was really strange. But in the other game that they played versus Schalke, it just seemed like once you put them on a 4-1 composition, they had no clue what they were doing. Like Schalke hard through that game. Hard through. They had like ocean soul and everything. There were multiple times where they would feel like he absolutely had to be doing something right now instead of just resetting and fixing top wave, which leads to them just dying trying to break like a tier 1 bot lane turret when they basically have the game in their hands right now. Like Origin were handed that victory, whereas I haven't seen Mad Lions handed the victory. I've seen Mad Lions throw victory.
They've thrown a few. That first G2 game wasn't that great.
But like most of the ways that Mad Lions are losing games now is legitimately just feels like their coaching staff either has a really good pre-prepared draft, or they will literally give us the single worst drafts that we have seen. Like their draft versus Origin was probably the worst draft we've seen in the entirety of LEC this season, right? And that's why they lost that game. But if they're not throwing in draft, it doesn't seem like they will throw away the game, making the mistakes that Schalke did versus Origin. It doesn't seem like Origin understand how to snowball leads very effectively at all. I mean, imagine giving an ocean soul to this current iteration of Schalke. Admittedly, Jankos probably thinks like 50 times upgraded now that Forgiven's out, but it's still pretty fucking bad. But the moment these
that's one thing we have to address.
They don't know what to do.
Come on, because there's one. Listen, I know a lot of people didn't like Forgiven as a person, or they thought maybe he was cocky coming back this year and thinking he'd be good. But like, y'all went way too hard the other way. That just because they won that one game against G2 and then Vitality, one of the worst fucking LEC teams probably ever to play the game, just because they won 2 best of ones, we're going to pretend this team's really good. Like, they have tons of problems still. Just one of them isn't called Forgiven anymore. That's it. They've still got loads of problems, loads of players that are pretty bad.
I would still gladly say that they are better now than
they're better, of course, but that's not much, is it?
Yeah, it's not much. It's not much. I just think that the reason, like, it's very true that we would not give so much credence to any team that like beats G2 and then beats a bunch of random shitters afterwards, if it wasn't for the fact that Forgiven was already there in the first place.
Yeah, of course.
Way to keep shitting on Forgiven, which in fairness, he brought this upon himself, and it was very, very fun. But now we've all forgotten about Forgiven, and he'll be completely irrelevant until his dying day. So we're probably all moving on after this week from that. But I mean, the only point I really wanted to make there is that they gave fucking Schalke Ocean Soul, because the moment they move away from a 1-3-1 composition, they can't play through the fact that, Upset's an S-tier AD carry, NateDOhDoubleG is an S-tier mid laner, which I don't think I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this time, which is good because I normally get pushback on that. And Alfari is one of the best players in the entirety of the LEC right now. If you have those 3 setups and set up 3 lanes with that, it's very difficult for you to lose against any of the lower tier teams. But the moment that they put NateDOhDoubleG on Nautilus and they just play 4-1 instead, they basically need Schalke of all teams to throw, and that was this weekend. So I do disagree that they look like third. I really think Mad Lions look like third right now, and honestly, I don't think it's even close. that's the end of my rant.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, you have to understand, like, it makes perfect sense. Like, obviously, Jankos thinks NateDOhDoubleG was pretty overrated, let's say, like, 2014, 2015. Really, just a really overrated player. Like, you know, couldn't do shit. Even if you give him the best jungler, can't get anything done. He just sits in his lane like a coward under his tower, farming millions, you know, like other mid lanes we won't name. And then now though, pretty good player now though. Like now, for a start, if he doesn't have a jungler support, he's still pretty good. So he's the one mid laner. By the way, everyone in the LCS, listen up, you can do this as well. If your team's just complete trash and your jungler and support do nothing, just get really strong as the strongest champion in the game and go to the side lane on your own and just farm all the minions. You get all those items you need. It's awesome. You don't even need that stupid jungler. Just go to the side lane. I know you're gonna think, but no one else in NA does it. It doesn't matter. No one will be there when you go there. They'll all two group around mid. Now the problem is you will lose the game when your 4 players at mid just dive in and die 45. But you will have been right, is my point. Listen, be smart, be like NateDOhDoubleG, stay safe. That's all I'm saying, kids. NateDOhDoubleG should do like a mid lane as like, you know, one of those secure, like safety videos that you get shown when you're in school, like, you know, don't cross the train tracks or whatever. Like, you know, he should do one of those for mid laners, how to stay safe. From many years ago, mainly.
Sure. I actually do think mid laners unironically should be learning a lot from NateDOhDouble's side laning.
They should. He's actually good at what he does.
He's actually, I think he's the best at side laning in Europe.
As long as he's not in an LCS final in a normal 5v5 team fight, he's a fucking brilliant player. Put him in that setting, I wouldn't want him. No, of course not. I'm not an idiot. I want to win the game. You know. Enough said. Is that the end, just because we were flaming NateDOhDoubleG? Is that the end of this? It might be, actually. I think we've talked about everyone good. The problem is the only team we could talk about left is XL. I don't. Who the fuck wants to talk about Schalke, SK, and Vitality? They're just bad. Is there anything you have to say about XL? Anyway, so. We talked a little bit. Is there anything to say about XL?
I mean, they lost me money this weekend, so I can flame them a little. Like, but they won that first draft that they played. They fucking won it, and then expected like 0-3 on my screen in the first 5 minutes. So I don't know. That was the freest cash in ever. But they won the second game, luckily, so that was good. And Topside honestly played really well in that game, but they also hard won draft in that game as well, so it's a bit difficult. But Miky and Expect actually did step up that time, which is good because the last time that we saw Miky was the weekend previously, where he's getting solo killed on Vayne by Ornn over and over and over and over again, which was very embarrassing. But this weekend he actually like was useful and helped out when they put him on Tristana, so that was really nice. That was really nice. You basically remove the enemy mid laner for the first 3 levels, and then you can just remove yourself for the rest of the game until you do like 10 billion range. So it's all fine. They found a way to make him work. But I think right now, Youngbuck is kind of showing that he, like, people on Fnatic, in Fnatic, like fandoms and the subreddit and all that, really loved trashing every single potentially bad draft that they had. But honestly, I think XL has some of the consistently best drafts that we've seen. They have a really good understanding of how the meta should function. And honestly, the individual players, they have to run it down for them to lose out on games. I don't think, can they even, like, they can make playoffs technically, but I think it's way harder for them than any of the people they compete with, because most of the people they are competing with have, no offense, beaten you or beaten Fnatic already, and they have those luxury wins in the bank account.
They've also lost to most of the top teams, so they're not going to have a good tiebreaker situation.
That's the thing. Yeah, like it's really difficult for them at this point to make it in, but I do think that they look a lot better than they probably should have looked. But yeah, I still can't really forgive them for losing that first game.
Jankos, what do you think of Cadril? Is he overrated? Because Veteran's always bigging him up, right? Because whenever Veteran talks about League of Legends, he's like really smart. But like, you know what? Like Monte Cristo and Papa Smithy are pretty smart. I wouldn't want him as my fucking starting jungler. I'm just saying, Veteran, you know.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of opinion about like XL, SK, and Schalke, I guess. I mean, it's just I wouldn't think about them, you know. Like I would think about like top teams, but I wouldn't think about them because it's just pointless to think about them. So I think that Cadril is fine, and I think that Trig is fine, and I think that Schalke jungler is fine.
Yes, of course.
So I don't think they are like insanely like. I mean,
Lurox does sound like something that you put in your toilet when it's clogged to like declog it or whatever. Like, give me a fucking break. Sounds like one of those brands, doesn't it? Like?
So I feel like that Cadril can like in some games I think he looks really like good, and in some games he looks like the opposite, but most of the time he's pretty, stable, and he knows how to like kind of play the game. But obviously, all of them are like not the strongest players, and they don't have like the strongest team, and they don't have like the best understanding of the game. So it's very hard to talk about them because the way they lose games is by getting ganked or outplayed and stuff, right? And they don't really get to play the macro, and even if they do, they don't really like play it that well. So I don't like I could rant about like Rogue, about like Origin, about all these teams, but it's very hard for me to rant about the bottom tier teams because I just don't not only not watch enough games of them, but also I just don't care about them. And I could say something about Schalke without Forgiven, for example, if you want me to.
Yeah.
So since this is like a spicy subject, I love spicy.
Yeah.
I think that it's not about like, because back in the day, I feel like Forgiven was like mechanically super strong. And that's what made him, like have his name of like, going like taking your tower and stuff. Like he would actually like know how to play the carry, and he would know how to play aggressive in a way where people wouldn't like respect it, or people would be too scared to like fight back, and he would get the tower, he would get a CS, whatever. But I feel like right now players are like evolved so much, like everyone's so much better than they were back in the day, that bringing him to the team didn't really make the team like they didn't make their bot lane good, right? Like it's not like Forgiven is going to be better than Upset, better than Caps, better than Kazi, better than who like
Reckless
and stuff, right? So you don't bring a player that will make a bot lane difference, but you bring a player that is very emotional, you bring a player that is very hard to work with, and you bring a player that is very like hot when it comes to like arguments. Like I remember like you can't really argue with him because you will be wrong even if you are not wrong, and if you try to explain something, it's hard to do that, And I personally have like the best experience working with him, and yeah, he did call me alcoholic because I went out 2 or 3 times during the split.
Reasonable.
With Vander, by the way, so both should be alcoholic.
It's all Vander's fault. There you go.
Probably. Wait, it was
probably
yeah,
yes.
like it was fine.
So I think that it's he was in the team, and I feel like team atmosphere was probably shit with him, and like I mentioned, very hard to work with. And right now they have equally like not the best AD carry, but I just feel like the difference between Inax, right, and
Yes.
Forgiven is that probably within I don't know, Inax maybe is the same, but I assume he's not like us. Like cocky in a way, and he can actually like take criticism, and if he sucks cock, he will just accept it, right? And he will not blame everyone else around him. So
Did he do that on purpose? Did you purposely try to link that to that legendary Forgiven quote, or was that accidental?
That was actually accidental.
Because remember, his famous quote was, "You can think about it. Think about the context of this, veteran. It's like if you aren't trying to be the best, it's like you can try to be the best, or you can suck a cock." Well, what's ironic is this: most of his career, he did the former, and at the end, he did the latter. So he was correct. In the end,
Exactly.
his philosophy of life was correct. He didn't know it, but he solved both parts there.
So yeah, I mean, I think that Schalke, obviously not a very strong team, and even and with Forgiven, without Forgiven, it's probably pretty much the same thing. But I just feel like if I'm playing in Schalke and I'm already like losing every game, then might as well lose it in like a good atmosphere, so
Yes.
I can at least like enjoy my life a bit, instead of like not only being like shit on the Rift, but also being shit on in like screams and shit on everything, and just live is shit. So
Exactly.
True, but yeah, I think also I think most of the carries and like the lower tier teams are actually playing pretty well. Like I think Comp, Crownshot, Patrick as well, and Inox are all pretty solid. And yeah, I think the Forgiven change was like it was kind of whatever. I think they're like kind of similar skill level. It's just Inox doesn't have this like walking target on him that if you go bot level 3 you're probably gonna kill. So that's like a good thing about the swap, I guess. But I think mechanics wise, Forgiven was probably better. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
He's just nowhere near as good enough at that one aspect now to be worth the rest. Yeah. And he's definitely not good enough to have nuked his career the way that he just did and get away with it. Like,
yeah. I mean, maybe in a different meta, it was still like Caitlyn meta. Maybe he would 1v9 every game.
Yeah.
But even that is a lot harder now because of tower plates, so you can't take tower as fast. But also his problem in the past was his champion pool. He didn't really pick Kalista when it was really OP, and now I feel Senna, he never really picked it, except like maybe 2 games of Senna at the end where he was really AFK and didn't really know how to play the champ. So yeah, was a bit
He's
rough.
also, by the way, the sort of ridiculous person that if you ever bring up to him, like, yeah, but you're not even good on the meta champion, he's like, exactly, it can't be a good champion. It's like, that logic. Like, that's not the way around it works, by the way. Like, you have to be good at it, like, deft, etc. is what you're talking about, you idiot.
I'll use that
Let's
one.
leave it on that note. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Andrew, Blunt Smoking Anus Destroyer, Dean Tanglis, Chi Mao, JDubs, NateDOhDoubleG, Peter the Feeder, Tobias Bernasconi, and a special thanks, as always, goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask me a question in my monthly AMA. Would you like teasers for who the next guests are on my shows? Maybe you even want to take part in an niche, obscure esports discussion with me. We'll put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.